Today's recipe is a simple and delicious turkey curry, and it's great because it uses leftover turkey, which means it's perfect for post-Thanksgiving, post-Christmas, or really anytime you have leftover turkey or even chicken hanging around. You start off by peeling some ginger. You know what, guys, I like to use the side of my spoon to peel the ginger. It works really well, especially if you have a very thin-edged spoon. The thicker-edged spoons don't work quite as well. So if you have that, then just use a paring knife or even a vegetable peeler to do it. You need a tablespoon of minced ginger. And lately, I'm peeling it because that's what the recipe calls for, but lately I have been just scrubbing my ginger and then mincing it up with the skin on. It like saves a couple of minutes, or I don't know, a minute or whatever. And I don't even mind having the skin in there. So unless it's like a super thick, weird, or like wrinkly old skin, just you can leave it on if you want to. That's my new discovery. Anyway, mince your ginger. Then some garlic. Same thing, about a tablespoon. 3 cloves. Smash, peel, mince. These are escaping my knife. Okay, so a tablespoon of garlic, give or take. I'm not even measuring this because a little bit more will just make it more delicious. I am a huge fan of those two flavors together, and so, if the recipe calls for a little bit less and you have a little bit more, it's totally okay. I wouldn't worry yourself too much about measuring. Similarly, this recipe calls for a small onion, and this onion is clearly not small, it's quite large. And I'm just gonna go ahead and use the whole thing because onions cook down so much. Unless it's a very, very specific recipe, you can kind of, give or take a little bit. This is probably gonna yield like 1.5 cups of onion, where a small onion would yield about 1 cup, and I'm just fine with that. I'm more prone to using the whole onion than storing an onion in my refrigerator because I think I always forget about them. I try really hard not to use half an onion. So heat your pan. So this is not an authentic anything, but I'm using the flavors of Indian cuisine here. So I have an onion, ginger, and garlic base, and I'm sauteing it. You can use vegetable oil, you can use butter, you could use ghee, you could use I was gonna say coconut oil, but I don't think I would do that. You need about 3 tablespoons of fat though. So I'm using 3 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so the butter is melting. Add your onion and the ginger and garlic. You wanna saute this. It also gets some salt. About a teaspoon of kosher salt, less if you're using Morton's or fine salt. Do it to taste, you guys. I don't know what to tell you. Salt is a crazy, crazy, crazy topic because there's so many different kinds of salt. They all have different levels of saltiness. If you want to be super duper accurate, you can weigh things, but who's weighing their salt? Nobody. In our test kitchen, we use one kind of salt that's less salty than the other, and it's really rough. So then just keep cooking this until the edges start turning golden. That should take about 5-7 minutes. While the onions are sauteing, I'm going to prepare my potatoes. I need 2 Yukon Gold potatoes cut into 1-inch dice. The potato adds a little bit of heft to this recipe, but it's also going to help it thicken. So it's serving dual purpose here. You could add other vegetables here. This is a pretty straightforward, very simple. There's not a lot of stuff going on in here other than the flavoring ingredients and the potato, but you could add winter squash or carrots or like anything kind of like hearty would go nicely in here. And at the end, when we get there later, I would say you could add some greens or peas or whatever. So it's sort of use this as a base for whatever you have on hand. What's in your refrigerator? Pumpkin, squash, carrots, I think would be particularly nice in here. Okay, so I don't know, it's supposed to be getting brown, but I'm getting impatient, so I'm going to add my spices and other seasonings. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of tomato paste, That's gonna add a lot of depth of flavor. And then it's 1.5 teaspoons of coriander. Can't even see this. But this is literally the only measuring thing we have. It's a teaspoon of cumin, ground cumin. I feel very, 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 very strongly that cumin needs to be fried. So I always add it to my fat. I don't think I'm alone in that. Adding cumin to liquid without frying it is, I find, not delicious, but really nicely toasted cumin is great. And sometimes what I do, if I don't feel like I'm gonna wanna saute it here, is I'll toast my cumin seeds really, really nicely ahead of time, and then I grind it, and then I just have toasted ground cumin on hand whenever I want. But inevitably, I will be adding it to some kind of fat, into some sauteing aromatics, and so it generally ends up getting sauteed no matter what. So once that's gotten a little bit aromatic, you will add, this is a Serrano chili. The recipe calls for a Thai chili or a Serrano. Just split it and add it in just for flavor. Thai chilies are very spicy, which is why we're using that method, because you don't actually get the entire, all the seeds and stuff in there, but you get the flavor, which is really nice. And then the stock, which is 2.5 cups. If you can find salt-free chicken broth, that's great. Homemade, of course, even better. But if not, just be wary of the amount of seasoning that you add. You might want to start with 1/2 teaspoon of salt instead of a teaspoon in the beginning, and then season more at the end, because you don't want this to get too salty. And then your potatoes go in, and then everything just comes to a boil together. And then you reduce it and simmer it until the potatoes are soft. That'll take about, I don't know, 15 or 18 minutes. Okay, so it's been simmering. The potatoes should be tender by now. Let's check. You should be able to crush them. Yes, exactly. So what I'm doing is I'm crushing just a few against the side of the pot, and that accomplishes a little bit of thickening, but you can leave some of them whole because that is a nice way to eat them. This way you don't have to add any other thickener. I mean, obviously, if you don't want it thick, it doesn't matter. Don't crush them. It's totally fine. I just like to have a little bit of texture in my stews, and so I often will do this with potatoes, and I don't have to add any additional thickener. Okay. So then add about 2 cups of shredded turkey, and you just want to heat it through. Shouldn't take too long. Because the turkey's already cooked, you don't want to heat it too aggressively. You don't want it to get tough or tougher if it's already tough. It's not tough. You cooked your turkey perfectly the first time. But so just gently heat it through, and then when it's heated through, turn off your heat and stir in some yogurt. You don't want to do this overheat because it can break, right? It's gonna separate, break if it gets too hot. So you can stir in your yogurt, and this adds a lovely tangy deliciousness to it. I like to serve it over rice. You can serve it with whatever you want. I mean, it obviously has potatoes in it, so you don't even really need the rice, but it's a nice accompaniment, should you desire. I mean, starch on starch, always delicious. Spoon some in. And then to brighten it up, because I'm always wanting to brighten stuff up, I have some sliced chilies and some mint. You can use basil or mint or cilantro. I just want some fresh, like, brightness at the end, because this is a pretty, like, cozy and, like, pretty starch forward, like I said, with the potatoes and the rice. So, you know, give yourself some freshness. And then a little spoon of yogurt, should you desire it. Guys, what's that? Look. Delicious. I can't wait to eat this because it has all of my favorite flavors, and it's not your usual Thanksgiving leftover turkey stew. It's something completely new. Give it a try. If you like recipes like this and you want more, make sure to click like and subscribe, because we have plenty more where this came from.